We off?
30 seconds of carefree bliss.
Oof, like wind in your hair carefree.
Oh, like using Clorox Disinfecting All-Purpose Cleaner in the home carefree.
Yes!
Like dog slobbing on the coffee table and cleaning it with Clorox Carefree.
He's on a roll now.
Spit toothpaste on the faucet.
You got it. You got it.
Peanut butter on the light switch.
Oh, spritz, spritz.
Spritz, spritz. Clorox, man. Clean feels good.
Okay, we're back.
Use as directed.
What makes a great pair of glasses? At Warby Parker, it's all the invisible extras without the extra cost. Their designer quality frames start at $95, including prescription lenses, plus scratch-resistant, smudge-resistant, and anti-reflective coatings, and UV protection, and free adjustments for life. To find your next pair of glasses, sunglasses, or contact lenses, or to find the Warby Parker store nearest you, head over to warbyparker.com. That's warbyparker.com.
Welcome back, True Crime Army. I am your host, Margot, and this is Military Murder, a show where I focus on crimes committed by military members and veterans. But don't worry, you don't have to know anything about the military to listen. You just have to be the type of person who heads straight to true crime when you're watching Netflix. And if that's you, welcome home. Hello, my loves. I just want to say happy 5th birthday to this podcast. Can you believe that little old me set out to start this show with 0 audience, 0 social media following, and really 0 clue what I was doing? And here I am, 5 years later, and I still have no clue. It has been the roller coaster of my life. In addition to my own personal life, I added another daughter to the mix. I PCS'd once, got off of active duty, transferred to the reserve, am living in my 4th house since starting the show, and I now have a legitimate podcast studio. I've come a long way from the walk-in closets. I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to my researchers and writers throughout the years. I would not have been able to get to 5 years without you. Shout out to Myrtle, Haley, Elizabeth, Stacy, Sloan, Beth, and Udaloop. I really wouldn't have been able to do it without any of you. I want to take this time to tell you how much I appreciate you who are listening right now. It truly means the world to me. But in addition to those people who listen, there are the people who support the show by signing up for Patreon or Apple Premium. Those of you that support my sponsors, your support and your patience throughout the years has been absolutely amazing. So with that, today I am bringing you a mini-ish case that is somewhat loosely related to a case I covered a few months ago. I am now ready to give you a case update on that previous case, and I'll put out that episode on the same day as I release this one. Join me today as I bring you the story of a double homicide out of Tennessee. This is the story of Juan and Thomas Vasquez. Now, let's dig in.
Military murder is an independent project and is not endorsed by the Department of Defense or any military component. The views expressed are those of the host. The content of this podcast is not meant to be legal or medical advice. Warning, this episode contains graphic details of murder and is not suitable for young listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Our story begins in Cunningham, Tennessee. On Friday, June 23, 2006, a school janitor arrived to work at 6 a.m. at Montgomery Central High School. Before he even got inside, he found the body of a young man in the school's back parking lot. The man had been cut and stabbed numerous times, and part of his fingers were completely cut off. His wrists and ankles were taped together with duct tape. The janitor was horrified, and he immediately called 911. After investigators arrived, they determined that the body belonged to one of a set of 18-year-old twins. It was either Matthew or Thomas Vasquez. To figure out which twin was dead, the sheriff's office would need to locate the other twin. Investigators downloaded the CCTV footage from the high school and determined that the body had been there since sometime between midnight and 4:45 a.m. There wasn't a lot that could be seen because the parking lot didn't have good lighting, so most of it was just dimly lit. The school was also located in a very rural area of the county, but the detectives were able to locate some video footage that gave them a good lead. Sheriff's deputies soon tracked down Matthew Vasquez, so they knew that the body at the school belonged to his twin brother, Thomas. Upon learning who Thomas's next of kin was for notification purposes, police rushed to Thomas's father's house. He lived 13 miles from where Thomas's body was found. By 1 p.m., authorities were pulling up to Juan Vasquez's home, and they were there to make the heart-wrenching notification. Juan was only 45 years old, and he was about to be notified that one of his 18-year-old twins was dead. But when authorities tried to make contact with Juan, their efforts were futile until they discovered why. 45-year-old Juan Vasquez was discovered dead in his basement. He was dead as a result of multiple gunshot wounds. The police now had a double homicide on their hands. Authorities were now eager to solve this double murder so as to not spark complete panic among community members. So initially, the police played their cards close to the chest as far as what they were releasing to the public regarding the double murder. Juan Vasquez was a well-known civil rights activist within the Clarksville area Hispanic community. He was a founding member of the Hispanic Organization for Progress and Education, also known as HOPE. He was also the vice chair for the Clarksville Human Relations Commission and had served previously as a Hispanic liaison to the branch of the NAACP in the Clarksville area. On Sunday evening, June 25th, 200 members of Juan and Thomas's family, along with friends, came together to hold a candlelight vigil. Pastor Tommy Vallejos, who was also the president of HOPE, spoke to the masses. Pastor Vallejos spoke about how Juan had established HOPE and that Thomas and Juan were a shining light for all people. He said, quote, "Our light is shining now in honor of Juan and Thomas. This light here cannot be pushed out by the darkness. Do not be afraid," end quote. He continued, quote, "Juan's vision for HOPE was to come together as a community. It didn't matter if you were Black, white, Hispanic, Korean, or any other races. We're not going to be divided. It's impossible to put this light out," end quote. Juan's ex-wife, Debbie Vasquez, who was Thomas's mother, spoke next. She thanked the community for their support and spoke of her appreciation that everyone was united for her family. She went on to talk about her son, Thomas. Quote, "My son was a good boy. He was kind and gentle. He didn't deserve this," end quote. A memorial fund was soon set up at a local bank, and Juan's colleague from the NAACP, Terry McMoore, announced that there was a $1,000 reward for information leading to an arrest. Terry said that they were going to talk to law enforcement and even talk to the DA about increasing the reward to $10,000. With all of Juan's roles as a civil rights leader, it caused people to wonder if the murders could be racially motivated. One teenager called the local newspaper the Leaf Chronicle and expressed her concern that the Hispanic community in the county were terrified of continued acts of violence. She went on saying, quote, "There is definitely a group of racists here who don't want immigrants living here. Juan was an advocate for immigrants, and some people wanted him quiet," end quote. Despite the community's fear that these murders might be hate crimes, law enforcement insisted that nothing in their investigation so far had turned up any indication that they were. Clarksville PD Lieutenant Phil Ashby, head of the Major Crimes Unit, assured the Leaf Chronicle that the investigation indicated that the father and son victims knew their assailant or assailants. He stated, quote, "At this point, it does not appear to be a random act, and there has been no evidence so far to suggest this was a racially motivated act," end quote. By Sunday, June 25th, law enforcement had interviewed a person of interest in Juan and Thomas's murders. The man, who wasn't named in the news just yet, had been arrested in Arkansas and charged with vehicle theft. He was being held in the Pulaski County, Arkansas Regional Detention Center until the Clarksville, Tennessee police could arrange his transfer. Today's episode is sponsored by Acorns, and April is Financial Literacy Month, an entire month dedicated to taking control of your money. Because honestly, no one really taught me how to manage money growing up. I didn't learn about investing until I was well into adulthood. But what I love about Acorns is that it makes it easy to start saving and investing for your future in just 5 minutes. I know, April is an entire month, but you don't need an entire month to learn. You don't need to be an expert. Acorns recommends a diversified portfolio that matches you and your goals. You can start with just your spare change, and you don't need a lot of time. Setup takes just 5 minutes because I know that your time is precious. And if financial wellness has ever felt out of reach, Acorns makes it simple, giving your money a chance to grow without the overwhelm. Personally, using Acorns gave me the confidence to stop putting it off and just start. And that peace of mind is completely worth it. Sign up now and join over 14 million all-time customers who've already saved and invested over $25 billion with a B dollars with Acorns. Head to acorns.com/militarymama or download the Acorns app to get started today. Paid non-client endorsement. Compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. Tier 1 compensation provided. Investing involves risk. Acorns Advisors, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. View important disclosures at acorns.com/militarymama.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. 3 couples, 4 vacations, a lot to unpack. Watch The 4 Seasons, a new series starring comedy favorites Tina Fey, Steve Carell, Will Forte, Coleman Domingo, and more in a hilarious and heartfelt love letter to long-term relationships. Based on the original Alan Alda film. Watch The 4 Seasons, streaming now only on Netflix.
On July 7th, 2006, within a week and a half, the suspect was named, 23-year-old Chinu Kim. On July 7th, 2006, Kim was transferred to Montgomery County, Tennessee, and charged on 2 counts of first-degree murder, 3 counts of felony murder, and 1 count each of especially aggravated kidnapping, and theft of property worth more than $1,000. Kim was held without bond. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could he have been charged with 3 counts of felony murder if there were only 2 bodies? Well, Montgomery County Sheriff Sergeant Brian Prentice explained that the 3 felony murder counts were a result of felonious acts that were committed while Kim carried out the murders. By December 2007, which was a whopping year and a half after the murders, Kim was facing his first hearing, which was an evidentiary hearing. During the hearing, the defense and prosecution questioned witnesses to determine what evidence would be heard when the case went to trial. Sergeant John Williams from the Jacksonville, Arkansas PD testified for the prosecution. He said that early on June 24th, the morning after the murders, he received a call from Montgomery County Sheriff's investigator Larry Hodge. Sergeant Williams said that he was told that Kim was a suspect in a double homicide and that it, quote, somehow involved drugs. At that time, he and another Jacksonville officer brought Kim into custody. Prior to the evidentiary hearing, Kim's defense team filed a motion that his arrest was warrantless and that all evidence gathered from that arrest should be dismissed for the hearing. Deputy Hodge testified that they had found probable cause for a vehicle theft arrest warrant. According to the deputy, a burgundy Toyota had been found in a rural area on a road about 1.5 miles from the high school where Thomas's body had been found. When they ran the car's information, they discovered that that burgundy Toyota had been stolen from Juan Vasquez's auto body shop, which was named ABC Auto Repair. They also interviewed someone who lived nearby where the car was found. The witness said that he had been woken up by a man who fit Kim's description on the night of the murders. The man had asked the witness for a ride into town, and the man obliged. When they stopped for gas, the witness saw a deputy inside the gas station and asked the deputy to come and talk to his passenger, who basically was a hitchhiker, and that hitchhiker was later identified as Kim. The reason that this man asked the deputy to come out to his car and question Kim was because Kim was making this man feel uneasy, and of course, he was giving him a ride. Well, the deputy came out and checked on Kim, but then the witness still drove Kim the rest of the way into town and dropped him off at a different gas station. Which, by the way, if you're ever picking up a hitchhiker and it makes you feel kind of uneasy, maybe don't pick up hitchhikers. Well, the sheriff's office had Kim's driver's license because of that gas station incident, which is how the witness identified him. Using the driver's license, they found out that Kim had a Ford Mustang that was registered to him, and that Mustang was in Juan's repair shop, ABC Auto Repair. When they interviewed Matthew Vasquez, Thomas's twin and Juan's other son, he told the deputies that Kim was one of their clients and he was upset about how long it was taking for Juan to fix his vehicle. When Deputy Hodge finished his testimony, the defense was immediately up in arms about it. They claimed that the prosecution had been sandbagging them about the deputy at the gas station who had identified Kim. The defense argued that the investigation hadn't been handled correctly, and due to the oversight in failing to share that information, the death penalty, which the prosecution was considering, should be taken off the table. So basically at this point, at this evidentiary hearing, the defense was arguing like, whoa, we didn't even know about this witness. Defense attorney Jody Bell argued, quote, the state wants to execute this man, Kim. There's no hiding the ball. That's what the prosecution wants. And I move that the death penalty be stricken from this case, end quote. The prosecutor, Art Bieber, rebutted saying, quote, I was under the impression they had seen everything in April, I assure you, end quote. So basically, this is a case where the defense is getting to this hearing and they have not had access, allegedly, to all of the information. The judge immediately ordered that all investigatory files from law enforcement be made available to the defense team. The judge further ordered that the state provide a list of every law enforcement member who was involved in the investigation, that they provide the defense with all access to anything that's known by those on that list. He also said that after reviewing all the evidence, he believed that there was no negligently concealed evidence. He stated, quote, there will be every attempt made to provide this information, end quote. The prosecution said that the DA's office would provide the list to the defense team by January 10th. So you might see that the years are passing rather quickly. The murders happened in the summer of 2006. And by August of 2008, the capital murder trial has still not gotten underway. But by this point, a little bit more information came out about Chinu Kim, the suspect. He was originally from Jacksonville, Arkansas, and that's where he was detained. And he had previously been enlisted in the Army, and he had been stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. At some point while he was still in the Army, Kim got into a car accident. He asked ABC Auto Shop in Tennessee to fix it, and that's how he met Juan. After the contract was signed for the repairs in June of 2005, Kim separated from the Army, but he was unhappy with the amount of time it was taking to complete the repairs. Reportedly, it was taking over a year, and they believe that this is what triggered Kim and targeted Tom and Juan. Despite this new information, the old rumor that the killings were racially motivated and hate crimes were still swirling around town. A friend of Juan's, who was the president of the Korean American Association, they told the Leaf Chronicle that there had never been issues between the Korean and Hispanic communities in Clarksville before, and that the two didn't have any beef now. He stated, quote, we always have worked together and we have always been real tight with relationships between the Hispanic and Korean community. We are still tight and we will continue to do so, end quote. So as you can imagine, why are they talking about the Korean community? Well, it is because Chinu Kim is Asian, and I'm not sure, but I'm assuming that he's Korean since the Korean community was now up in arms about this information about whether there was kind of like a race war going on. It would be another 2 years before Chinu Kim, who was now 28 years old, took a plea deal to remove the death penalty from the table. His guilty plea was for 2 counts of first-degree premeditated murder. The 3 counts of felony murder, aggravated kidnapping, especially aggravated kidnapping, and theft of property were all dropped. With this guilty plea, the truth would finally be revealed, or whatever truth Kim had. So it was true that there was a contract signed in 2005 for the body shop to repair Kim's car. By the summer of 2006, Kim was pissed, and so being without a vehicle, he rented a car in Arkansas and then drove to Clarksville to confront Juan and Thomas, like, what the hell, where is my vehicle? He brought with him a loaded firearm and dressed in all black. Juan was at a business meeting when he was called away and went home. That's when Kim shot and killed Juan inside his house. While inside of Juan's home, he stole items including a cymbal set belonging to Thomas, who apparently was a drummer. Kim then stole a Toyota that was in Juan's shop and forced Thomas into the car. Because the stolen vehicle had a tail light out, it was identified by some firefighters who saw the car stop behind the high school sometime around midnight on June 22nd. Thomas and Juan's bodies were found the following morning on June 23rd. After Kim abandoned that stolen Toyota, Kim caught a ride from one of the neighbors who lived close to the high school. and that was the neighbor who asked the deputy to check his passenger at the gas station. The deputy saw Kim in the neighbor's truck and saw that he had a swollen cheek and a swollen eye. The neighbor then dropped Kim off in town at a different gas station. At about 2 a.m., Kim was picked up by a taxi driver and driven to East Attaway Road, where Kim picked up a bag that looked like it had a symbol in it. Then the taxi took him back to town at 3:26 a.m. The stolen Toyota was recovered at the end of East Attaway Road, and forensic testing later confirmed that Kim's blood was inside the car. Other forensic evidence showed that Kim called Thomas Vasquez multiple times the day of the murder. Also, during Thomas's autopsy, a key to Kim's Mustang was discovered in his back pocket. So if you're tracking, Kim murdered Thomas and Juan over his car. During his guilty plea, Kim apologized to the Vasquez family and told them that he wanted to provide them with a sense of closure and healing. For his guilty plea, Kim received 2 sentences of life in prison without the possibility of parole. The defense team did not go into detail about why the decision was made for Kim to take a plea instead of facing a jury in the planned January 2011 trial. In a very strange coincidence, Chinu Kim was under suspicion of murder in a murder that occurred while Kim was still in the army and stationed in Germany. You see, for decades, Chinu Kim was a suspect in the murder of 19-year-old soldier Amanda Gonzalez. If you recall, she was killed in her barracks dorm room in 2001, and I covered Amanda's case earlier this year. Well, as it turns out, Kim was Amanda's next-door neighbor when they were stationed at Fliegerhorst Kaserne in Hanau, Germany. But if you listen to my episode on Amanda, you know that 2 decades would go by and then the true culprit would be found and charged with her murder. But I'll give you an update on Amanda's case in a separate standalone episode. Before I end today's episode, I would like to end with some words about the victims in today's case. Juan Julian Vasquez Jr. was born on October 8, 1960 in Harbor, Indiana. His parents were Severo Vasquez and Candelaria Cuevas. After high school, Juan attended and graduated from Indiana University. He was a parishioner of the Immaculate Conception Catholic Church in Clarksville. He owned and operated ABC Auto Body Center in Clarksville, and he was also a real estate agent. As I mentioned earlier, Juan founded the Hispanic Organization for Progress and Education, aka HOPE, and he worked as a liaison for the Hispanic community in Clarksville for the NAACP, and he further served as the vice chair for the Clarksville Human Relations Commission. Juan also spearheaded the establishment of the Hispanic Cultural Center at Austin Peay State University in Clarksville. But besides his auto repair business, his real estate dealings, and his philanthropic work with civic organizations, Juan also taught dance lessons. One of his students was the secretary for HOPE, and he taught her how to dance. The secretary, Rosa Ponce, said, quote, "He taught me to dance like I was the salsa queen," end quote. Juan was very passionate about civil rights and how the issues affect everyone, not just Black, white, or Hispanic people. He viewed civil rights issues as human issues. Juan was survived by his mother, Candelaria, sons Juan Vasquez Jr., surviving twin Matthew Vasquez, and his daughter, Eva Vasquez. He also left behind 1 brother, 3 sisters, 2 grandsons, and a granddaughter.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Ladies, you'll end up shopping for your guy's deodorant, right? So try Degree's Original Cool Rush. You see, last year, Degree changed the formula, and men were mad. One guy even started a petition. So Degree admitted they messed up and brought the Original Cool Rush scent back. It's clean, crisp, and actually smells like someone you want to cuddle. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So toss one in your cart and find out why it's the best-selling men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory.
Thomas Leon Vasquez was born on June 25, 1987 in Grand Prairie, Texas, to his father Juan and his mother Deborah Sue Shelley Vasquez. I'm not sure if you caught that date or not, but Thomas would have turned 19 years old 2 days after he was murdered. Thomas graduated from Northwest High School in 2005, where he played drums and was first runner-up in the state band competition. His obituary said that his two passions were customizing cars and dancing. It sounds like he was a chip right off the old block. He was remembered as being a beautiful person inside and out. He was sweet, full of energy, and always there to help his father. Thomas was survived by his mother Deborah, his twin brother Matthew and brother Juan, sister Eva, his grandmother Candelaria, 2 nephews, and 1 niece. Juan and Thomas were honored together at a funeral held at Immaculate Conception Catholic Church on Friday, June 29th. The night before, a rosary was prayed at their church. Their service was officiated by Father Ed Steiner and Pastor Tom Vallejos, who Juan had worked with so closely within Hope. The funeral was attended by hundreds of friends and relatives who honored Juan and Thomas by playing trumpets, guitars, singing, and dancing. Father Steiner told the attendees, quote, "Let us dance as they would have wanted to dance. Let us sing as Juan and Thomas would want it, singing with the angels. Part of why we're here today is to remind us that violence has not triumphed," end quote. Juan's daughter Eva danced a cha-cha with her partner down the aisle, and another speaker took the podium afterward. It was Terry McMore, who had worked with Juan through the NAACP. He influenced Juan to get involved in activism, but Juan was the one who helped Terry to handle himself during heightened tensions. Terry talked about how Juan taught him how to be diplomatic and not just rely on protesting in the street. Terry said that Juan had a unique quality that let him reach out to people and achieve his goals in the right way. Terry had a special gift to present, a framed letter from then-Governor Phil Bredesen. The letter embodied Juan's work with the civil rights movement in Tennessee. Debbie Vasquez spoke about her ex-husband and her son Thomas. She told the mourners that Juan had a dream since he was 17 to become president of the United States one day. She said, quote, "So leadership has been in his soul his whole life. He would reach out and help the underprivileged of any color," end quote. Debbie raised 4 children with Juan and knew him better than most. She spoke of a book of notes that Juan kept that she now had. In it, he had written a statement that particularly resonated with her. Quote, "Spend time with your family and plan positive activities with your children. These days will never come again," end quote. Then Debbie spoke about her son Thomas. Quote, "My son Thomas was a very honorable young man and a very quiet and gentle soul," end quote. She talked about how Thomas volunteered his time taking care of the paperwork and computer work for Hope. She referred to Thomas as the backbone of the organization. Debbie had found a note written on Thomas's old cell phone, and she wanted to read it to the mourners. It said, quote, "Wow, times are really, really hard right now, but you gotta pray for yourself, your family, and others, and you've got to live your dream," end quote. The last speaker was Clarksville Mayor Don Trotter, who had known Juan for 5 years. He talked about how his friend had never asked for anything for himself. Juan was selfless and only wanted things that benefited his people and the city. At the end of the service, a dance team called Little Mexico performed Son de la Negra, which was one of Juan and Thomas's favorite dances. The dancers were dressed in traditional Mexican clothing to honor Juan's love of his heritage. Juan's longtime friend, Pastor Tom Vallejos, spoke last and urged the attendees to never forget one of Juan's favorite things to say, "Sí se puede," which translates to "it can be done." Even though Juan was cremated, his ashes were interred next to Thomas's casket in Rest Haven Memorial Gardens in Clarksville. Their shared headstone is inscribed with Vasquez And underneath is, quote, "Together forever, father and son," end quote. And there is a little cross between forever and father. Thank you so much, True Crime Army, for supporting this show for 5 whole years. It was November 11th, 2019, when I first put out 3 episodes. Anyway, if you haven't caught up or if you're a new listener, go back and listen to all the old content. Some of it does have like background music when I was still trying to find my footing, but the stories are still really, really compelling. All right, listen, if you feel compelled to further support this show this week, send a link of Military Murder to 3 close friends and encourage them to listen. That would be absolutely amazing, and you don't realize how much you're helping the show grow by sharing it with friends. All right, shout out to Murdo, who has been with me for pretty much 5 years, and she started writing for the show about 4 or 3 years ago. Anyway, the sources for this episode include articles found in the Tennessean, the Leaf Chronicle, and Army Times. Military Murder was created by Mama Margot Productions. Our executive producers are Myrtle, Falcon 13, and Jen. Our newest associate producers are Tommy and Veronica. Our newest assistant producers are Daytona and Caitlin. The music was created by Ty Ops. Until next time, remember, you never really know what someone is capable of, so remain vigilant always. You have a fabulous week, and I'll keep digging to bring you another military murder story next week.
Mama's working on her podcast. I don't want to.